French toast can be a little challenging to make if you're serving more than a few people. That's why we came up with the idea of transforming my favorite French toast recipe into one I call oven-baked French toast. Now I can make 12 slices at a time, and you can too. Let me show you. We love to make French toast with flavorful bread. A wonderful challah bread. You can use a French brioche like this. The French call French toast pain perdu, lost bread, because it's a way of reviving bread. And French bread, you know, becomes dry after a day sitting on your counter, and you have to do something with it, make it into breadcrumbs or French toast. But the brioche, I'm using a fresh loaf. It can be a day-old loaf too. And I'm going to use the end slice because we have hungry people and I don't even like to waste the end. I would cut the crust off just from the end and cut the bread into 1/2-inch slices, maybe a little thicker than 1/2 inch. Using a serrated knife like this makes the slicing very easy. You can use store-bought white thick sliced bread. If you're on a diet, you can use thin sliced bread, but don't up the slices that you consume. So there, we have just the right number of slices. Hey dogs, are you waiting for your French toast? They haven't had breakfast yet, and they're going to get hungry. So 6 eggs, 6 large eggs in a big bowl for 1 loaf or 12 slices of bread. And these are farm fresh eggs. I just collected them from the hen house, and they are so beautiful, really hard-shelled and gorgeous yellow yolks. 6. And break those up with a whisk or with a fork. 1 1/4 cups of whole milk. You can use heavy cream if you want. You can use 1/2 and 1/2. Mom used to use whatever was in the kitchen. So 1 1/4 cups of milk. And very important, the flavoring. A big pinch of salt. I use kosher salt. 1 tablespoon of sanding sugar. I'm using sanding sugar because it's a little bit sparkly and a little bit larger grain than regular granulated sugar, but you can use regular sugar. And 2 1/2 tablespoons, this is kind of important, the orange flavored liqueur. I'm sure in your liquor cupboard you have some orange flavored liqueur. So 2 1/2 tablespoons. And the zest of a nice bright skinned orange. I find this is the easiest way to zest an orange or a lemon. If you don't have an orange, you could use lemon. But the orange just adds such a great flavor with the orange liqueur. Approximately 1 1/2 teaspoons of orange zest. And cut the orange in half and just squeeze about 2 tablespoons of orange juice right into your mixture. Again, it just adds a flavorful deliciousness to the mixture. Now, I have 2 baking sheets lined with a non-stick pad. The oven is preheated to 375 degrees, and these non-stick pads are very, very good for lack of cleanup. You're going to have everything on the pad and it just comes right off. It also is non-stick. You could use parchment, but not in this recipe because we're going to put these under the broiler and parchment would burn. And now, soak your bread, but not too long. You want to just dip it one side, turn it over. Notice how I'm using the fresh slice of bread to keep the drips right here. It's just a little tip. Just lift it out. Don't leave it in too long because the bread tends to soak up a lot of this liquid. And just continue doing this until the liquid is used up and the bread is all soaked. Boy, does that look delicious. And how nice that you're not frying anything. That's the beauty of this particular French toast recipe. Just letting the last slice soak everything. Now take this to a 375-degree preheated oven, put it on the middle rack, and I have 2 ovens here. I'm just putting one in the top and one in the bottom. 10 minutes. Look how nice and golden these look, but they need to get a little bit brown. So make sure that the oven is on broil at 480 degrees and watch it 2 to 3 minutes. Done. This is really attractive looking, really delicious. Now, my brothers could eat, about 6 pieces of this each. I could eat 2. How about you? I suggest that you invite some friends over this weekend. Make a nice breakfast. Serve it hot out of the oven. It's best that way. And I would sprinkle with a little bit more sugar. Since we haven't fried this, and there's no grease and no calories from butter, you could even add a little tiny bit of butter on top, like that. Let it melt right into the hot toast. That should melt nicely. And then syrup. Real Vermont maple syrup, or Maine, or New Hampshire, or New York State. And that is a delicious breakfast. And I have the perfect drink. It's my trick of the trade. Joey, do you know what's in here?
I have no idea, but could we make a few of them?
Okay. We can do it in the juicer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really delicious.
Excellent.
This is what I recharge my batteries with every single morning. I don't leave my house without it.
Okay, and it's a guaranteed battery recharger.
It's the green juice, okay? And you need a juicer.
Okay.
Like this, but how about just a pear, some celery. Oh, celery gives such good
for you, and a lot of fiber too.
Cucumber.
The whole thing in there, just like that?
The whole thing. Parsley.
Parsley's good for you.
Ginger.
Ginger?
Oh, yes. Oh, parsley is so good. It gives that pungency to the drink. Oops. I just got that stuck.
Where's the ginger, Martha?
Oh, the ginger. Here it is. Oh, just a piece of ginger.
Do you got to take the skin off the ginger to do that?
Nope. Don't have to take the skin off the fruit, off the ginger, off the orange. There, that's the ginger. And even a piece of orange or 2, okay? This is what every morning, do you drink this in the morning?
No, I don't.
What do you drink in the morning? Hot chocolate?
Sometimes hot chocolate.
No,
or,
bad.
Chocolate milk, or water, or, sometimes just plain orange juice.
So, now how do I get this off? There.
There we go.
Okay. Now, this is so spectacular. I want to pour you a fresh one. Even though these are fresh, all of these. Nikki made them in the kitchen.
Nikki's the best.
And not in this kitchen, in the prep. Nobody's allowed to use this kitchen until, for the first time, until
so
I
use it. That's right.
So I like eating quinoa because this high protein grain, how many of you in the audience know about quinoa? Oh, plenty, good. Well, if you don't know about it, it is next to buckwheat, the highest protein grain known to mankind. And after it's cooked, it is the highest protein grain. Buckwheat gets old and it loses some of its potency, but quinoa is delicious. It's very easy to digest, and it will keep you going through any of the intense workouts that we've seen today. So this is a simple recipe using, and you can use whole milk if you like, but using low-fat milk, or no fat. I always use no fat because I don't care about having that extra calories, and 1 cup of quinoa that has been rinsed. So you put this into 2 cups of no-fat milk. And just simmer that for about 15 minutes covered. And we have a swap out right here. And it has absorbed almost all the milk. You can see it's still like a cereal. It looks delicious. Quinoa is a very interesting, tiny little grain, similar really to rice, but very, very more tender, and has a little coating on it that you'll really like. It's little round grains. Now you can add to this a tiny bit of sugar if you're not on a sugar-restricted diet, and about 1/8 teaspoon of healthy cinnamon, and stir that in. And then you don't have to cook that any longer. Then you can add any number of great things. You could continue to cook this for a little longer. This looks very, very well done, so I'm not going to cook that anymore. But you can just put this in a bowl, add fruit. raspberries, bananas, blueberries, blackberries. You could even add citrus to it if you want, like sections of grapefruit. I like it with blueberries. All of those, why not? And a little grating of more cinnamon right on top. And if you want, you can add more milk. This is, again, a low-fat milk for me. If you are thin and perfect, like all our exercise teachers that we just saw, you can put real milk on there if you want whole milk. But I think this tastes utterly delicious. Now I want to show everyone two of my favorite light breakfasts from my new book, Martha's Entertaining. Broiled grapefruit and porridge with dried fruits and nuts. And joining me from our studio audience is Amanda Garfinkel. Where's Amanda? Oh, there you are. Hi. So nice to have you.
Wonderful to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, are you a cook?
I love to cook.
Oh, good. Well, this is a delicious breakfast, and if you're having guests for breakfast, or if you just want to treat your family to Sunday morning or Saturday morning breakfast, it's a very nice thing to do, and it's healthy.
Perfect.
So what I like to do is with the broiled grapefruits. Now, how many of you in the audience have ever made a broiled grapefruit? Oh yeah, some of you, not very many. It's actually, it enhances the flavor of the grapefruit to broil it.
I've never had it that way.
Yeah, it's very delicious. And we garnish it with a slice of blood orange that's been dried in the oven. So it's almost like citrus candy, but so delicious. So we're using a wonderful Irish oatmeal, and we're also using very beautiful, as pink a grapefruit as you can find. So I'm going to cut the grapefruit in half, and evenly in half. Oh, look how gorgeous that is.
It's beautiful.
Oh, one pit. That's so nice. Now, because it rocks around a little bit, what I like to do is just take a little bit off the other end, so there it's stationary.
I've never done it that way before.
Yeah,
That's
it
great.
helps.
That's
It actually aids you when you're trying to eat it and broil it evenly and stuff. See, nice,
Perfect.
So that's your half, and this is
you.
my half. And I suggest 2 pits. There's another pit. So just take the pits out if you see them. And use these little grapefruit knives. These are fantastic, and they do segment. This one's a split. Do you see the split?
I do actually.
Yeah.
We have one
do you
just
have
like this
one
at home.
Yeah, and so you can go around the outside first, and then split. But I usually go on either side of the membrane first, and then I go around. You can do it whatever way works best for you. But this saves time because it's like half the number of cuts because you're doing it at the same time. Doesn't that work well?
It is so much easier.
Yeah, it's so great. So we do the segmenting, and then we go around to the outside. And yeah, very nice. Oh, so easy. I love this.
They are very juicy
No,
too.
they're so juicy. Well, citrus in the winter is the best time to really enjoy all of this. Beautiful. And go all the way around. You could be doing this in a dish and save the juice and then just gobble it up because it's so good.
Oh, it's perfect.
So is yours all done?
I am all done.
Oh, good. Absolutely neat. Now just put that on a cookie sheet, and this is going to go under the broiler.
Wonderful.
And you just broil it until there's little blackened spots all over the top, so you know that it's actually been cooked. This is so much fun. Now, as far as the orange slices go, we use a piece of parchment. And you can get parchment on a roll like this. This is Reynolds parchment, and it really saves a lot of time in cleanup, and also it doesn't stick to the pan if you use a parchment because it's non-stick, and it just comes right off the roll like this. I love parchment paper. I use it all the time. And here you have your blood orange slices.
They are beautiful.
Yeah, they're a little less than 1/8 of an inch thick, and you just sprinkle them with confectioner's sugar like this and put them in the oven. I put them in about a 200 degree oven for about 30 or 40 minutes, turn them over, keep them in there until they are really dry and stiff, and they come out looking like stained glass. I think, aren't they pretty?
Oh my gosh, they're beautiful.
When you taste them, they're really delicious. Really, really pretty.
Almost don't want to eat them.
Okay, so then you have your broiled grapefruit, and here it is, already broiled. And you put this in a little dish like this. Pretty.
Thank
and
you.
Not yet. Not just let's.
Absolutely.
I'll give you a little.
Thank you.
And we're going to sprinkle this with a little bit more sugar. Want to do yours?
Sure.
Okay, but I would do it like I would lift this up so you don't get it on your napkin.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is a very beautiful way to start a breakfast. This tiny little grain is called quinoa. And it is tiny, but it is mighty. It contains a tremendous amount of protein. It's considered a complete protein because it contains all 8 essential amino acids. And it's also higher in unsaturated fats and lower in carbohydrates than most other grains. While many times it's served in savory side dishes, quinoa makes a wonderful hot breakfast cereal. And I thought I'd show you how to use it. This is white quinoa. And the first thing to do is wash the grains. Just run some cold water on the grains and put it in a strainer. The seeds are covered with a layer of saponin, which is a bitter soapy resin that forms a lather on contact with water, and it should be washed off. This is to keep insects away from the grain itself. And these are actually the fruit of a plant that belongs to the same family as beets, chard, and spinach. So here we have the quinoa, all rinsed, and now we can start making our wonderful cereal. 2 cups of milk, which we're going to bring to a boil. Milk comes to a boil rather rapidly, and we're going to add the quinoa to the boiling milk. And we should also have, for the cereal, brown sugar, cinnamon, and some fruit, whichever fruit you want to use, like blueberries, raspberries. Okay, it's just coming to a boil, and we're going to add the quinoa to the milk. This is going to expand to 4 times the original volume. So make sure you have a large enough pot. Stir it in well. And another very nice feature about quinoa is that it is gluten-free. So with so many people suffering from gluten intolerance, this is a great source, not only of protein, but also of magnesium, iron, and potassium. So turn this down to a simmer and cook until the quinoa is thick and plump. After 10 minutes, add 1 tablespoon of brown sugar and a little bit of cinnamon to taste. Oh, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Quinoa is relatively new to the American market, but it was a favorite grain of the ancient Incas who used it for hundreds and hundreds of years. Now simmer that 8 minutes longer. So now 18 minutes are up, the quinoa is done, and you can serve it. What a very healthy and delicious breakfast. If it's a little thick, you can add a little bit more milk, even heavy cream. But this is a gluten-free breakfast that everyone in your family will enjoy. A little bit more milk. A sprinkling of berries. Raisins would be delicious. Raspberries, blackberries. A healthy, delicious, and nutritious breakfast cereal. So once you've mastered the art of yeast dough, you can make all kinds of things. As you've seen, you can make sugar buns and sticky buns, but you can also make some really delicious babkas and fruit-filled coffee cakes. And today we're doing a yeasted coffee cake that my mom would, oh gosh, she would love. She would love to have it with her morning coffee. It is full of fruit and nuts and a few lovely crumbs on top. And I'm going to make the filling first because it includes 1 cup of almonds. These are slivered toasted almonds. Let's just add a whole cup here. And 1 cup of golden raisins. And 1 cup of dark raisins. A zest of 2 oranges. Zest of 2 lemons. So it's very citrusy, it's very nice. And now 1 teaspoon plus 1/2 of vanilla and 2 tablespoons of an orange liqueur. I love orange liqueur. half a cup of sugar. So mix this all up and you will have your beautiful fruit filling for the coffee cake. So that is the fruit filling for the yeasted coffee cake. And now for the crumbs, 3 tablespoons of butter, softened. We're going to make this a gluten-free recipe. The dough is made with gluten-free flour, and so is the crumb topping. 1/4 cup of gluten-free flour and 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of confectioner's sugar. And mix that up. If the butter is soft at room temperature, it makes a really nice crumb. Simple recipe for crumbs, very reminiscent of a New York coffee cake too. Now, we have to roll out our dough. Here's the dough. It's doubled in bulk, and we want to roll this out to 18 by 18 inches square. It's a very nice dough, and it rolls out very easily. And that's the sign of a good dough, that you can pick it up and flip it over, and it doesn't tear and break and fall apart. So now we spread our fruit filling, reserving about 1/2 cup, and leave about 1 inch all the way around. So now we're going to egg wash the border with 1 large egg and a tablespoon of heavy cream. This is acting as a glue and will help seal in the fruit. So we roll this up. See how nicely it's rolling? The egg really does act like glue. Now spread this out a little bit, fold it in half, and twist it over itself, like that, and like that. The pan has been buttered, lined with 1 piece of parchment paper with flaps. This will enable you to lift the cake out of the pan and keeping the top. Otherwise, you'd have to invert it, and you might lose a lot of the crumbs and a lot of the fruit. So put this right in here. And now egg wash the entire surface. This will help brown the cake, and it will also help the crumbs adhere to the cake. Sprinkle the rest of the fruit on top. And now the crumbs. And I love crumbs, they're so good. So now cover this with a piece of plastic wrap. Put it in a warm but not overly hot spot. I like the top of my oven, it works really well. And for about 1 hour until it's about doubled in volume. So now our bread is risen, our yeasted coffee cake, and it looks really pretty, don't you think? Now you can test, just press, and it pops back up. That's a well-risen cake. So now get this right into your 375-degree preheated oven for about 50 minutes, and then reduce the heat to 325 for another 20 minutes or so. So here's our cake. It's been out of the oven for a little bit more than 1 hour. Don't cut it when it comes right out of the oven. It's a little too hot and a little too moist. It has to settle down a little bit. But eating it fresh is really good. And actually tomorrow, it's very good too. So, and it never lasts till tomorrow in my house. This is great with morning coffee. It's lovely in the afternoon with tea. And boy, is that gorgeous. Look at that yellow, yeasty dough. And just full of beautiful, beautiful fruit. That is a great looking coffee cake. And remarkably gluten-free. It's our baking bonus for today. Enjoy. The cookies call for buckwheat flour, which heightens the pleasantly bitter flavors of coffee and cocoa nibs, making them a deliciously grown-up treat. Start with your dry ingredients, 1½ cups of all-purpose flour and 3/4 cup of buckwheat flour. Notice the difference in color. Buckwheat is sort of a grayish brown, And buckwheat is not a grain, it is a pseudo grain. Comes from the seeds of a plant that looks kind of like the seeds of rhubarb. So there's 3/4 of a cup. Oh, by the way, just start creaming your butter. 2 sticks of butter, 1/2 pound at room temperature, with 2/3 of a cup of white sugar. Into your dry ingredients, 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt and a tablespoon of good espresso powder. And when I say good, I mean high quality, something that you like the flavor of, the same that you would use in your chocolate Diablo cake. So I'm mixing all the dry ingredients together. And 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla right into the sugar and butter. You can scrape down your bowl. And now you can add your dry ingredients. There are no eggs, there's no liquid, just basically butter and different kinds of flour and cocoa nibs. You could make this by hand, but because it's such a heavy dough, it would be a little hard to stir by hand. Looking good. Now you can sprinkle in 1/3 of a cup of cocoa nibs, pure chocolate. So the cocoa nibs are the center of the cocoa bean. After it's fermented, these little cocoa nibs are what's inside the hull of the cocoa bean. And that's your dough. Pretty easy. This has to be chilled in a log and then sliced into individual cookies. And it is a dark color. The log should be formed about 12 inches long and 1.5 inches in diameter. You want it completely solid because when you slice it, you want it to slice in a lovely fashion. This is about right. Roll it up in parchment and chill. It should refrigerate for at least an hour, and of course, you can keep it overnight up until a day or so. Unwrap the dough. Once it's chilled, then form your cookies. So put that on a baking sheet and chill. So here is our chilled dough. I would cut the end off, and then you should be able to get about 30 cookies. I'm going to just mark this. About a little less than 1/3 of an inch thick, and slice carefully through. And I like it because it is an unusual color. If it breaks a little bit like that, don't worry, just kind of press it back together and get these on your baking sheet. They have to be placed about 1 inch apart. Make sure your oven is preheated to 325 degrees, and the rack should be in the upper and lower third of the oven. Use a very sharp knife and get these right in. They only cook for 13 to 15 minutes. Very fast because these are small cookies. So when the cookies come out of the oven, just transfer them to a wire rack. Let them cool completely. Then put them in your cookie jar. When I invite guests to lunch, I love to make Frisee au Lardons. It's a French classic salad made with spicy greens, crisp bacon, creamy poached eggs, and a warm vinaigrette. A taste of Paris brought right to your table when you serve a Frisee au Lardons. Frisee is a member of the chicory family. It's also an endive. And what I like for this classic salad is just the center yellow leaves. And you can find this at the farmer's market. You can also find it in a grocery store. And this is the center. It has a little tiny bit of green on it, but it's pretty. Well washed, spun dry. The leaves should be separate. And then just fluff the leaves into your salad bowl. Now, the bacon. Use slab bacon. This you can find at the butcher. Good, fragrant, smoky bacon. It adds an excellent flavor to your salad. Cut the slab into 1/4-inch slices like this, and then cut the slices crosswise into 1/4-inch lardons. These will go into a large skillet and cook until crispy and brown. And don't throw away the fat. The rendered fat is for your dressing. So this is a little bit of a rich salad, especially with the poached eggs. While cooking the lardons, just keep turning them, and they're going to get evenly cooked on all sides. While this is happening, you can poach your eggs. Now, I love to make poached eggs, and I usually do the eggs in a 4 or 5 inch deep pot like this. 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to the water. The vinegar helps the egg whites coagulate more evenly. And choose fresh eggs. The fresher the eggs, the better. And you can break the egg right into a bowl like that, and just insert your egg right into the water, let it set, and then as soon as it sets a little tiny bit, you can turn it over with the point of a spoon, like that. You want the whole yolk covered. And your next egg, keep adjusting the temperature of the water so that it doesn't come to a rapid boil and cause the egg to completely disintegrate. There, that looks good. Now here's a trick that I can show you. If you want to make a lot of poached eggs ahead of time, have a bowl of iced water, just as I do, right next to you as you remove the poached eggs. And they can sit in the iced water even overnight. Here's a very nice poached egg. You just put it in the cold water. And look how great this egg looks, so perfect. And then, right before serving, you just reheat it in simmering water. So here our lardons are perfectly cooked. Just remove them and you'll finish up your dressing. Oh, it's so fragrant of bacon. I love the smell of this kind of bacon. Now add 3 tablespoons of very finely minced shallot, which is a member of the onion family. This gives a very nice flavor to the dressing. And I did say that we're using the fat of the bacon as our fat for our dressing. And the vinegar is a sherry vinegar, sherry wine vinegar. And this, too, is utterly delicious. A little salt, a little pepper. Raise the heat a little bit so that the shallots just cook just a little tiny bit. You can add your lardons right back in, and you're ready to dress your salad. You just pour this dressing right over your frisee. Toss. And serve. A nice mound of frisee studded with those golden lardons. And we're going to top this with one of the poached eggs. Now here's another little hint. Poached eggs are very wet. So to dry the egg without hurting it, just put it on a piece of bread like that, because really the egg stays so perfect. And just slide it very carefully on top of your salad. Sprinkle with salt and a little bit of black pepper. And before serving, I always like to cut a little slit right in the top of the egg.
So let's start with poaching eggs. And I've invited my friend and chef, Pierre Shedlin, to show us how he poaches eggs. So Pierre, I'm so glad that you're here.
Definitely.
Why don't we start with the quail's eggs? Because this is a I love the quail's eggs on toast, and I love how you do quail's eggs, and you do them all at once, which
All
is
at once.
scary and interesting at the same time.
But very simple.
Very simple,
Very simple.
yeah. Now, these are very beautiful, hard-shelled little eggs with small yolks and small whites.
Exactly.
And there's a trick to opening them too,
Absolutely.
right? You can't really crack it on the edge of a bowl
You
successfully.
can't because the skin inside is much, much firmer
I
than
see.
a regular egg.
Okay.
So you have to go with a serrated knife.
Okay, serrated knife and just
And
cut.
taking the smallest part on the bottom, because so the egg yolk goes on the bottom, and you're not going to hurt it when you saw through the shell.
Oh, it just saws right very easily.
Oh, very easily.
And so you can do about 18 to 25 eggs?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
At a time. Then
And
another
you-
way to do it is to, if you don't want
Show
to-
that one too.
Exactly.
Wait, too.
We do it like that. Just put your knife.
Secure. Okay.
But just before you touch any egg, some of them might be already broken or soft.
Be careful.
So be careful because they would break on a time.
All done. So about 30 eggs.
30 eggs.
Okay, so now the water has to be boiling rapidly.
Exactly. The boil helps as well to give some, to help the eggs to coagulate as fast as possible. And the movement of the boil helps to create the nice shape
Okay.
of the egg.
So what about vinegar?
Adding vinegar definitely helps to coagulate the white as
It
well.
does.
Use the less expensive one because you're going to discard the liquid.
Okay.
So that's approximately a quarter cup of vinegar
Okay.
done here.
Now this is very exciting. Now also have a bowl of iced water with a strainer set in the ice because you're going to immediately put those eggs into there.
Absolutely,
Right?
to stop the cooking as
Okay.
well.
So I would say that's pretty much boiling now.
That's
right?
boiling now,
Yes.
exactly. So now we're just going to give some movement. I'm going to add the egg like that. And we are not even going to touch it now.
Don't touch it.
Don't touch it. All the white is going to go around the egg.
And this is not the eggs.
That's the egg white because
Yeah.
the egg white is you have two parts in egg white: the
Oh.
solid one and the liquid white.
Okay. Don't add salt to your poaching liquid. That's another rule because it causes the egg whites to break.
Break,
right?
exactly. Then once you have 30 seconds, the eggs start to coagulate together and they are a little bit less fragile as well. So
Oh,
you have a
right.
little idea.
Okay.
So
There are a lot of eggs in here.
The-
Oh, they're lovely.
get there. So now
So they're completely encased in their white,
the
in the
whites,
albumin.
absolutely.
And they will be tasty and tender and just cooked enough.
Just cooked enough. You want them nice and soft.
Okay.
Now we have to take each of them and separate the excess white.
So don't worry about the excess white.
Or you can eat it as well. It's definitely comestible.
Okay.
So
And they are so cute and so fast. This is what's so amazing about this method of poaching eggs. They just look like little pearls, beautiful golden pearls. And you can trim it with a little scissor. And not one has broken, not one is not coated, which is very, very nice. They have all done their thing. And then you like to serve it with the green caviar?
Well, you can
Wasabi.
serve them on a toast with green caviar and wasabi, or we can serve them just with regular caviar as well. It would work just as well.
So here's some little
So that's
toast.
the rest of the egg.
So would you put caviar on the toast first?
It's on top.
Okay. Just like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And a little dollop of.
And a little dollop of caviar on top.
Okay, so we'll make a little plate of those, and it tastes so good with the wasabi, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And they stay very nicely. What a beautiful hors d'oeuvre. Poached quail's eggs, not very difficult to make, and so quick. So now we have to do the large
Let's
eggs.
do the large eggs. So different.
Okay.
With the same process, we can do it again. We can do it in a shallow water or in a high water.
Now the same thing, vinegar.
The
but
vinegar, yeah.
Like how much? A tablespoon like that, is that enough?
A little bit more. More vinegar you put, more it's going to help to stick the white together. So
And
it's
do
good.
eggs all the same size?
You can do the eggs, yep. So we can break them.
Now, fresh eggs or a couple day old eggs?
Fresher the eggs is, more difficult it is to poach because the white is not completely surrounding the yellow now. So now we have boiling water, again with vinegar, and we're just going to add the eggs further inside, one after the other. You might just want to help a little bit.
Yeah, I find if you roll them over, it really does help keep their shape.
It does, just particularly because it's in a shallow pan as well. If you would do it in a longer pan, you want just to help at the beginning.
What you want is the perfect yolk encased in the perfect white, as even as possible. So you keep it boiling.
That's a matter of, we just put them in, so it's certainly going to be a matter of a minute and a half.
Okay.
Go.
That looks good. And once they firm up in the cold water, you can trim off all that excess white. And trim with a scissor or a sharp knife. And I use just old white bread as a sponge, like that, to take up the excess water. And if someone has ordered 1 or 2, a good whole grain toast, some salt and freshly ground pepper. And if you want to see the egg yolk, just cut the egg a little bit, and it is perfect, just the way you want it.
Oats are used in 2 different ways in this molasses oat bread. They're turned into a porridge, and they're also ground into a flour that's combined with bread and whole wheat flours to create a molasses-sweetened loaf with a delicious moist crumb. Into your bowl of 1 cup of rolled oats, add 1½ cups of water, plus 2 tablespoons. That's been brought to a boil. To this, add 1/4 cup of molasses. Molasses will be our sweetener in this delicious bread. And let this sit for 10 minutes while you get the rest of the recipe going. Just stir that around, and we have one already cooled, and we're going to use that for a swap out. So now this is warm but not hot, and you can add 1 envelope of active dry yeast over the porridge. Let it proof, and that is your leavener. Now in the food processor, grind 1/2 cup of rolled oats. Oat flour is ground from whole grain rolled oats, and it has a pleasant chewiness with a mild milky flavor that works well in muffins, cookies, pancakes, scones, sandwich breads like this one, and also in biscuits. It's actually the easiest flour to mill at home. Simply pulse the oats in a food processor, like I'm doing, until ground fine. And you can sift, or you can just use it right out of the food processor, as I am, because this is a coarse bread anyway. So there, you can see they're quite finely ground up here. And so right into the food processor, you can sift all the other dry ingredients together. 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1½ cups of bread flour. Bread flour is a type of flour used in recipes that require a good quality gluten formation. Also, 1/4 cup of powdered milk. This is the same milk that you will reconstitute with water if you don't have access to fresh milk. 1½ cups of whole wheat flour also. So all these dry ingredients can just be pulsed together, which is the same thing that sifting does. There. And then you can just put all the dry ingredients right in the bowl and stir this up. So here's our dough all mixed together. You can put a little bench flour on your counter and just turn this out into a pile on your board or your counter or your marble. We're going to put the bread right back in this bowl to rise. It doesn't need a lot of kneading. It really needs to be just thoroughly mixed, and try to really compress the moisture into the flour so that it's all absorbed. If it's a little too dry, you can sprinkle with a little bit more water. Now you can, with a clear oil, like a safflower oil, just brush your bowl. Very little oil necessary. And put your dough right in the bowl, cover tightly with plastic wrap, and let rise in a warm spot until doubled in bulk. It's going to take approximately an hour. Now here's our dough, nicely risen. So flatten this and pull in the edges. Really pinch it tight. And ultimately you want kind of a 9-inch domed bread. That's after it rises again. But see how nice this looks? And get that right on an oiled baking sheet and cover again for a second rising. In an hour, this will be ready to prepare for the oven. So here's our nice boule that's doubled in bulk. Preheat your oven to 400 degrees and make sure it's preheated before you put your bread in the oven. We're going to score the bread after we brush it with softly beaten egg white. So all over with the egg white, and then sprinkle a tablespoon or so of rolled oats all over the outside. And then with a very, very sharp knife, cut an X right into the top. Try not to deflate your bread. This X will look beautiful once the loaf is baked. Pop this right into the 400-degree oven. And you might ask, why are you scoring the bread? Well, it's scored intentionally to create a weak spot on the surface of the loaf to prevent the loaf from bursting at the weak spots. So it's nice to do an X in a round loaf like this. You could take a sharp razor and go in a spiral if you like. You can do just straight marks across the top. Every baker has his or her marks that they like to impose on their baked goods. I like to do the X. So get this right into your hot oven, 400 degrees for 10 minutes. Reduce the temperature to 350 until the bottom sounds hollow when tapped, 40 to 45 minutes longer, and then we'll see. So here is our bread. It has been sitting on a rack. When it comes out of the oven, make sure you cool it. Now for sandwiches, you can cut big crosswise slices. Look at the great texture. That's for me. And I think I'll make open-faced egg salad tomato sandwiches. I'm going to show you how to make a lovely cinnamon sugar bun. And the sugar is just flavored with cinnamon. Use 1 cup of sugar and lots of cinnamon. You can grind your own if you happen to have some beautiful cinnamon bark, or you can just use 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon from the spice market. Stir this up and add about 1/4 teaspoon of fine salt. Stir this up, and this will be your flavoring. So that's your cinnamon mixture. We have buttered muffin tins. These are the regular size muffin tins, well buttered. And our dough has risen. Uncover it. It smells so good when you uncover it. Now use a substantial amount of bench flour. And here's that same beautiful dough. Process is pretty much the same. Dough is soft, work quickly. No nuts, nothing, just cinnamon and sugar. So this is about 18 inches by 10 inches. One way you can do it is by stretching. It's a little stretchy. And we'll even it out as we go along. So here you have softened butter. Spread about 2 tablespoons of butter, room temperature, with a soft pastry brush all over the surface. You're going to roll it exactly the same way. And use about 1/3 of this mixture. Sprinkle all over. Again, roll up from the long side. And we're going to make 12 buns. Very easy. Trying to get it into a little bit of flour so that it doesn't stick. Now the same thing, just cut in the middle again, and into thirds.
Put it right into the muffin tin. This dough will sit in a warm place until it's doubled in size. Pinch the little loose end if you think it's going to have any chance to unfurl. Just pinch it and see how I'm pressing them down. Okay, so again, cover this with clear wrap and let rise. The sticky buns are rising very, very nicely. Now look, these have more than doubled in size, and these have doubled in size. They're ready to go into the oven now at 350 degrees. And uncover them, of course. Bake the sticky buns for 35 to 40 minutes. The sugar buns will bake for 22 to 24 minutes. So the sticky buns have been turned out. You have to turn them out while they're still very warm. Otherwise, everything will stick in the bottom of the pan. But look how glistening and beautiful the sticky buns are. Let them cool now on a rack, and then place them on your serving tray. They'll be gone in a matter of minutes. The sugar buns, the cinnamon sugar buns, take out of the pan. See how easily they come out? And dip in the remaining cinnamon and sugar. These two will cool and they will be gone within minutes. So to 1 1/3 cups of whole milk, add 1/3 of a cup of apple cider vinegar. If you watch closely, the milk starts to bubble immediately and starts to curdle, to acidify. And into a big bowl, 3 cups of all-purpose flour. I generally use Hecker's flour for pretty much all my baking needs. A teaspoon of baking powder. Make sure that it's fresh, hasn't expired, you haven't had it hanging around in your cupboard for a year. 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 2 1/2 teaspoons of salt, and I'm using kosher salt. Very important to have enough salt in this bread. And you can whisk this together. Now you can add another essential ingredient to this, and it's called coarse bran. This is the outer coating of the wheat. It comprises about 14% of the wheat by weight, and it is where a lot of the nutrition in the wheat berry is. And it adds a very nice flavor to the Irish soda bread. So we're making it healthier and better for you. So here's our dry ingredients, into which we cut butter. Now, I find that the cutting in of the butter is accomplished much more easily when you have the butter cut into little 1/4-inch cubes like this. It's actually 4 tablespoons of butter. This is just sliced from a stick of butter. And if it's cold enough, this is very easily accomplished. Then you just stack it like this, make sure the butter's cold, and then cut crosswise. And you have all the little cubes of butter that you need. You can do this all ahead of time and keep the butter in the refrigerator until you're ready to form whatever you're making. But when I make pâte brisée or pâte sucrée, I always cut the butter up like that. And here it is, 4 tablespoons of butter into 1/4-inch pieces. Now this, I'll just put right back in the fridge and I'll have it for the next loaf of Irish soda bread. It creams easily, it's very easy. So now cut with your old-fashioned pastry cutter, and I love these, and just cut your butter into the dry ingredients. This is a very easy 1-bowl bread. You want it to look like coarse meal, like you always say in the recipes, coarse meal. Let's see how the milk is doing. Oh my gosh, it is already curdled. It's like magic, it really works. And it's flavorful and fragrant. Now we're going to add to this our raisins. 1 cup of dark raisins for this recipe, but you can use golden raisins. Make sure I kind of pack in the raisins. I love raisins in this bread. So add your raisins, and you can do this by hand. And very important to have lots of caraway seeds. This is the essential ingredient for rye bread. It's an anise flavored seed. 1/4 cup we're going to add. Gives a crunchiness and an extraordinary flavor to the soda bread. And then we're going to stir in the buttermilk. Your homemade buttermilk. And that's it, really easy. Stir it in, moisten every particle of flour, but don't overwork. And I must tell you, the apple cider is very, very fragrant. And now on a lightly floured surface, form your ball of bread. Flour on the crust does not hurt. In fact, oftentimes if you buy soda bread, you'll see it's very white and floury. Oops. Use a bench scraper, give it just 1 or 2 light kneads, and put this right on parchment-lined baking sheet. You can dust it with a little bit more flour on the top. Cut a big X in the surface of the bread. And pop this into your 350-degree preheated oven and set your timer for 1.25 hours. And now I think our Irish soda bread is done. Let it cool on a rack. And you can cut it while it's still slightly warm and serve it with Irish butter, or wait till it completely cools and give it to your friends. Why do I love buttermilk biscuits? Because they're light, they're flaky, they're eminently edible. They make great sandwiches, or they're just great with butter and jam. And herb flavored, well, oh, these are so fantastic. And they are phenomenal with sausage or bacon. When I have people over for breakfast or brunch, I like to make biscuits. Biscuits with poached eggs and a little bit of hollandaise sauce is a really good breakfast. Buttermilk biscuits are easy to make, and this is the best recipe I have ever found. If you have a hard time finding buttermilk, and many of us do, I know in my little town I have to special order a quart of buttermilk. You can make your own at home, and the biscuits don't suffer one bit with homemade buttermilk. To 2 cups of whole milk, and this is a 2-cup measure, add about 1/4 cup of vinegar. You can use white vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and I have even used Japanese wine vinegar in a pinch. And just add 1/4 cup of vinegar. Pour that into the milk and watch what happens. By the time I finish our biscuits here, this will have turned, curdled into something resembling buttermilk. So exciting, I love it. So I'm gonna make half the batch with some herbs and half the batch plain. This recipe calls for 4 cups of all-purpose flour. All of our dry ingredients will be sifted together. Dip and level, that's what it's called. 4 teaspoons of baking powder. And again, I'm gonna stress in every single recipe, check for freshness. Make sure your baking powder is absolutely fresh. And because we're using buttermilk, we need to use a little bit of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 tablespoon of sugar. And a heaping teaspoon of coarse salt. Kosher salt's really good. And just sift everything. There you have it. Very easy. Mix that up and put half of this into your food processor. This whole show is about the use of the food processor just to save you time. And now add your ice cold butter right into the food processor. This is the 2 sticks of butter that you've cut up into 1/4-inch squares and kept chilled in the fridge. There. So that's the simple process of cutting the butter into the flour using the food processor. Mix the other flour into the butter flour. Now add the buttermilk. It's thickened beautifully, and you can see the curds. You want your dough to be light and fluffy, moist, but not wet. You want it to be a very nice texture. So half of this I'm going to just put on the table in some flour, and the other half I'm going to add some of these chopped herbs. And I like dill a lot, so I'll put finely chopped dill, a little bit of rosemary, and a few chives. Altogether about 2 tablespoons in a half a recipe, so you could use 4 tablespoons in a full recipe. Smells really good now. Okay, so we're first going to roll out these, draw the dough together. Don't do a lot of kneading or manipulating. This is a very light touch biscuit. And roll this to about 1 inch. And I think I'll make rounds for these. So pretty. There, so that's 10 biscuits. Before you put these in the oven, brush the tops with a little bit of buttermilk. Boy, do those look good. Let's hope they rise and are as light and fluffy as they should be. These go into the 450-degree oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. And now the herb biscuits. The dough is beautiful, fragrant. I'll make these a little bit thicker. And we're going to cut these into squares. So I'll roll it into a rectangle. That is a gorgeous biscuit. I think they'd be great with bacon or sausage, a fried egg, some grits, and fried green tomatoes. And again, a little bit of buttermilk on top. Try not to get too much buttermilk down the sides, because if you do, it might stop the rising, the even rising of the dough. Look good? I think so. Oh, wow, look. You can see they're rising really nicely. These are the best buttermilk biscuits I have ever made. So let's make your smoothie, because I want to drink that right now.
Great.
Okay, so you have a lot of things in it.
I do.
Okay.
So let's see. We've got
Start with coconut water?
Sure.
Okay.
So this is the water from the young coconut, and it's the most incredible source of electrolytes. You know, instead of all those commercial products people use that are all loaded with sugar and that.
My refrigerator is full of coconuts.
Yeah.
And I get them in Chinatown. They're already husked for me.
Yeah.
And I just drink that every day.
I do too as
I
well.
love it.
So this is one of the best sources of electrolytes. The other thing about coconut water, if you ever travel to a tropical country or Mexico and you're worried about getting an intestinal infection, drink the coconut water as soon as you get there. You'll never ever get sick. There's all kinds of natural antimicrobials in it. And you won't get dehydrated. So raspberries are also an incredible nutritional powerhouse, rich in phenolic compounds, particularly one called ellagic acid. And mangoes too. Mangoes have numerous carotenoids and a compound called lupinol. And that's my favorite combination, raspberry and mangoes. Now I'll put in all kinds of other fruits as well.
What's this?
That's sambasan. That's the acai fruit,
acai
which also
berry. All of this?
Yeah, why not?
All of this.
You know, and acai is also another. A lot of these, berries are our richest source of what's called anthocyanins and various flavonoids and phenolic compounds, not just vitamins and minerals. So we have what we call primary ingredients in food as well as botanical medicine, and we have secondary ingredients, which are how a plant or how a food has protected themselves from various stressors, and we're learning more that those are incredible.
This smells so good. Beyond whey, what does that mean?
Well, it's much more than just a whey protein concentrate. It has the highest quality of undenatured whey protein, and whey protein is the most, what we would say, efficient protein that you can ingest. It also has a bioactive colostrum. It has a magnesium creatine chelate. It really helps keep you anabolically strong because as we're aging, we're losing muscle mass and our bodies are slowly getting more and more what's called catabolic.
What about nanogreen?
Well, nanogreens is a way to get a high concentration of all the nutrition from green foods. You know, if you wake up and you have this, and sometimes we can't all day long eat all the wonderful foods that we want to eat, wake up and have a great smoothie. You got to have all your greens taken care of, all your berries, all of your protein, digestive aids in here. And now,
Botanical treasures.
Botanical treasures is mostly culinary herbs that we're learning so much about in science. It has turmeric,
powder.
green tea, yeah. And
Grams
chia-
of coconut milk powder. Where do you
Yeah.
get that?
Oh, that's just the whole meat of the coconut.
And what's this?
That's more fruit
Berry
anthocyanins.
juices?
That's undenatured fruits, wild fruits, lingonberries, olean berries, pomegranates are in there, and then this is a source of
Beyond essential
omega-3
fats.
fatty acids, as well as sea buckthorn oil and pine seed oil. Now we're putting
This is
Vital
the
Adapt in.
Vital Adapt, the secret, that's the most secret ingredient, right?
Yeah, that's got all your primary adaptogens, secondary, and companion adaptogens.
And then we have this delicious thing
Yeah.
to drink.
And you don't even need to blend it. It's pretty much all set to go.
Okay. Okay, and pour that into your glass. And how much of this should you drink every day?
Oh, 8 to 12 ounces is probably good.
Okay. Oh, yummy. Doesn't that look good?
And I think,
That is really delicious. And to your health and to my health.
cheers, Martha.